In this Boruto video I proved the high possibility that the Shinju Leader is in fact likely a mix of Ishiki's and Kurama's chakra, resulting from the Baryon mode fusion effect. This could explain not only the character design from hair to clothes and symbols, but also the instinct that is the interest in Naruto as his target, hinting at a very close relation between the original host of the Shinju and Naruto. All this is supported by something very suspicious that Amado did exactly right after the fight between Ishiki and Naruto was concluded, literally in the same chapter when Kurama died. Trust me, this one is a big one. Let's talk about it. Before we start, if you end up liking this video, I would appreciate it if you could leave a like and maybe even consider subscribing if you wish. I'm especially excited about your opinion, so don't forget to leave a comment. Let's begin. Since the reveal of the new villain in Boruto Two Blue Vortex, the Shinju, a collective of individuals with a shared organism, the question has arisen, who are they? With the new chapter, the third of the four so far known members of the Shinjus was revealed, and with that, not only is one unknown remaining, the leader, but we can now also pretty much deduce two main factors to determine who they are, thus increasing the chance to find out the missing identity of the Shinju Leader. First is the character design, which closely resembles that of the original human. Hair has turned into leather or something similar. Other features like the face and hide, clothes and symbols, all that resemble as well, so that's one aspect to consider. The second and much more important aspect is the instinct the Shinju has, because that instinct is actually derived from the relationship of the original human to the person in question. The target, as the leader Shinju, the only unknown remaining Shinju, has stated. This is very important. Bug Shinju, for example, has not really been introduced as having family or friends or anyone important to him. Hence, he's interested in Ada because she's probably the only person he likes in his life, even if it's in a very primitive way, which is pretty sad, especially because Ada's charm ability probably also played a role, although I think it wasn't even needed. But yeah, that explains his instinct purely based on hormones. Then we have Moegi clearly hinting at her relation to Konohamaru. Not only are they childhood friends, but also teammates, and I would even go so far as to say that she might very well have a crush on him. So that's definitely an instinct that is understandable. The same goes for Sasuke Shinju, who chose Sarada. Of course, he could have chosen Sakura, but as we know, the moment Sasuke died, he didn't give Sakura to Boruto, but Sarada. It's natural behavior to kinda love your child more than your wife, a different love because it's shared by both equally. It was his last thought, and Sakura probably would have wanted the same, so that instinct makes maximum sense. In fact, all of them so far make maximum sense, which makes the fact that the leader Shinju has an instinctive interest in Naruto much more interesting, because it also must make sense. Because all this implies not only that the original human that the leader Shinju is based on had some sort of contact with Naruto at some point, but also an extremely close emotional relationship with him. And here's where the problem begins. There's not a single individual who looks like Jura, the leader Shinju, that had at any moment in Naruto or Boruto a close relationship with Naruto. I know some people say it's Gaara because of the hair, and I'm sorry to say that, but this is so far-fetched. The hair doesn't even look like his. People just say that because Gaara has a ridiculous hairstyle. It's funny at best, but I can't take this theory seriously. I think Gaara is even smaller than the leader and less muscular as well. Not that it matters, because I honestly don't see any resemblance at all to begin with. But in any case, as we know, Gaara isn't reliant on combat as much as Sasuke, for example. Gaara is most of the time protected by sand and uses sand in combat. The leader doesn't have sand with him, and yet the Shinjus copy the abilities of their hosts. And the rest of the character design simply doesn't fit either, and besides that, this has zero plot direction. We're talking about the leader here, like what does Gaara have to do with all the mess that is happening right now? Why will it be beneficial to have him in the story at this point? And why would Gaara's instinct choose Naruto? That's really weird. You can't tell me Naruto is the most important person in his life. I get it, Gaara is weird in many ways, but not that weird. He has his own family, alright? Imagine Sasuke will choose Naruto instead of Sarada. It's just weird. And Sasuke has a much better reason than Gaara. Anyway, now that we have dismissed this idea, let's move on to something much more logical, at least in my opinion. Let's start with the character design. Clearly the character design is extremely unique. As mentioned before, the hair on the head is turned into such a leather thing. I don't know how else to describe it. It looks like leather. The only characters that come to mind at the moment are people like Amado and Kawaki, but since both of them are alive at the moment and not inside a tree or something like that, it's highly unlikely that the Shinju is a version of them, unless of course the Shinju is created entirely differently from the other Shinjus. Maybe it's artificially created by Amado using his own DNA to create his daughter or something like that. This is definitely a possibility that we can't ignore in Boruto. But other than that, we should actually look at characters who are no longer seen in the story. And honestly, the only character who is no longer alive with that hairstyle, so to speak, is Ishiki. Well, not really hairstyle, but you get the idea. In fact, it will actually fit his head shape quite well, but what about the instinct? Naruto isn't a Otsutsuki, so he couldn't have developed an instinctive desire to consume him or feed him to the 10 tails or something like that. But we also know that Otsutsukis could likely develop something that I can only describe as a cold heart. There is no particular desire in anyone other than themselves and their goal to consume as many chakra fruits as possible to become a god one day. I highly doubt all of those who pursue that goal have many people they love or want to protect. Maybe if there's a deeper meaning behind the will of an Otsutsuki, that is, their intention. Ishiki certainly didn't seem that way. Kaguya did, however. She had 2 unknown Otsutsuki statues made and visited them apparently pretty frequently, even wrote some sort of diary or whatever at those places. She also had a love interest and children. Maybe the consumption of chakra fruits make Otsutsukis crazy, I don't know, will explain why Kaguya changed her personality as well. The point is that if an Otsutsuki could theoretically be used as the base for a Shinju's existence, and if the Shinju is targeting people based on their instinct, which is based on the interest of the main human to one particular person, and considering that Ishiki doesn't have such a person, then it could be argued theoretically that the person who managed to defeat him, and maybe even impress him in some way, could become that person of interest. It doesn't have to be love. It could also be hate. It's not hard to become that person if there's no one in your life. Take Buck, it's the perfect example. If Naruto made a surprising and maybe even admiring last impression right before Ishiki's death, then maybe really Naruto would be the only logical option for Ishiki to have as an instinctive person of interest. But of course, that would mean that the leader Shinju, if it's based on Ishiki, was nonetheless artificially created, at least in some limited way, because Ishiki died and didn't turn into a mini-god tree after being bitten by one of Code's created 10-tails monsters. In fact, it seemed that Kurama even destroyed Ishiki's existence with Baryon mode, and that's interesting because of the nature of this fight, in which it basically can be argued that the chakra that made up the existence of Ishiki and Kurama kind of got mixed together in some sort of fusion reaction. In the process, similar to nuclear fusion, Naruto's and Kurama's chakra are consumed as raw materials to produce a new type of energy. But here, it's important to know that it was clearly stated multiple times that chakra can't stop existing. It's always there and will always remain. Although the chakra that made Kurama who he is was used, it still exists in some form. This is why the very popular theory has arisen that Kurama could return if somehow the chakra that was released from the Baryon mode gets collected, which will become very important in a moment. Especially in connection to physics, which clearly Baryon mode is based on, energy, which chakra is, can't cease to exist. It can change its form or state, but energy will remain energy. This is the law of conservation of energy and states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only converted from one form of energy to another. This is how Kurama was made. Hagoromo took energy that is chakra and formed it to life using Ninshu and yin-yang release. Baryon mode is basically the opposite. This means that a system always has the same amount of energy unless it's added from the outside. This also becomes important when understanding further the fusion effect between Kurama and Ishiki. Kurama notes that because all chakra is connected as described by Hagoromo through Ninshu, which is most likely how and why Kurama could learn that technique, because because he himself was created through ninju. The contact with an opponent will drain their lifespan as well. The focus is on as well and lifespan. Kurama consists of pure chakra, so if his chakra is used as a material for the fusion effect, then that's his lifespan. So if the lifespan of Ishiki is also drained, then in that regard it should refer to his chakra as well. And as we know, chakra not only has things like techniques written in it, which is for example why Kurama's chakra has a unique effect on people with whom Naruto shared it, and which is also why all the other tailed beasts have unique elements within their chakra, or why chakra in general has certain affinities. But this is also why, for example, Momoshiki could have gained Kinshiki's powers temporarily by consuming him, or why Kaguya received certain powers by consuming the chakra fruit. But chakra also displays things like emotions. For example, Naruto could feel Kurama's emotions back in the days, with which he could deduce that Kurama is a good person, which is also why and how the Shinju can feel the emotions of people even by remotely feeling it through their hosts. And as we know, Shinjus are also just chakra, and with that most likely use the chakra of the hosts, which again not only proves the idea that chakra is indeed more than just energy that can be used for powers, but also the fact that tailed beasts and everything derived from that work with and through ninju, just like Kurama did, just like the Shinjus, just like Hagoromo. And there's much more, such as chakra having knowledge as described by Amado and Ishiki, so it also has memories. Basically, it has everything to store the existence of an entire person in all imaginable aspects, usually stored in the chakra fruit. And when Kurama and Ishiki clashed, this chakra that made up their existence itself was released into the atmosphere, and it's arguable that it even mixed together once it came into contact. So far so good, the fundament for this theory indeed exists. Ishiki's chakra, which could have given the leader Shinju named Jura his character design, and Kurama's chakra that gave the instinct that led Jura to conclude that he wants to consume Naruto. But so far we don't have an explanation or even a hint that this possibility could indeed be the case, and that's where Amado comes in, and one very particular moment stands out in that regard. This moment in that form didn't happen anywhere or any time in the entire Boruto series other than right after the fight was over. Extremely suspicious. The importance of that moment is so underrated and, to be honest, actually more or less ignored by the fandom. Right after the death of Kurama and Ishiki, when their chakra was released and the fight was over, Amado was seen completely disconnected from any conversation happening inside the room. Despite the fact that he was asked a question and directly spoken to, he was seen holding his hand in front of his mouth and started muttering things that nobody heard. But they have all seen it. And as we know, his glasses, for example, can certainly be used for all kinds of technological things, like broadcasting live videos, so I can imagine communication is also quite logical. They saw him talking about something and asked if he's alright, and he only said, "Oh, sorry, you were saying?" He wasn't even listening. It's just weird, isn't it? If Ishiki had won, then such a reaction would be somehow understandable because one could assume he's preparing some sort of plan B, or is muttering in despair or something, or is thinking for himself. But in this case, all these things don't make any sense. It's literally a happy ending and he's acting as if the world is doomed. So it's likely that the situation that arose from the fight was used by Amado to prepare a certain thing. And the only thing that could truly have been used is either that someone from the outside, maybe a partner or drone or Koji, collected the abilities of Ishiki, which Amado later gave to Kawaki and his karma, making it look as if the abilities were always there. But then couldn't he have done something similar with Kurama and his chakra, or even with both of them? And if not for Kawaki, then for whom? This is where the Shinju Leader comes into play. It's a fact that the Shinju only exists because of code. Code is a name used in computer science to describe a piece of code of a program. Code can also refer to genetic code written in the DNA, something Amado is very experienced in. Things like instincts are written in the DNA code. So, is it actually possible that Amado somehow used the chakra of Ishiki and Kurama to somehow create the first Shinju, the leader? What's even more evident for the idea that he did something in that regard is the fact that he first muttered and only then asked whether Kawaki is okay, which proves that there's something he had to do from this outcome between Kurama and Ishiki that at the moment has a higher priority than asking whether Kawaki is alright. hinting at the idea that Kawaki was not the reason for this mattering, and with it most likely not Ishiki's abilities that he planned to implant into Kawaki later. And that's the whole point and idea. Whatever Amado's intentions are, it's possible that he found it handy that Kurama's chakra was floating around. How did he know? Well, he has probably seen it through his glasses, or someone gave him that information through the glasses. Or who knows, maybe it's unintentional and he simply wanted Ishiki's chakra to create Jura, and Kurama was inevitably part of it, leading to his interest in Naruto. There are a few hints for that idea even in the character design. First of all, Jura has the same clothes as Ishiki, at least more or less. Second, on his back he has a sign with 9 dots, which could possibly indicate the 9 tails of Kurama. Furthermore, he has those symbols on his belly, which Ishiki also had, just in a different constellation. And if we look at those seats or thrones in Ishiki's dimension, then we can clearly recognize the possible pattern. Not only for those symbols on Jura's body, but also the 3 circles on his back, as well as the dot in the center. I think I provided quite a lot of evidence for this theory, so what do you think of this idea? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, it helps me a lot. And if you want to see more Boruto content, then subscribe to this channel with the notification bell activated for more videos. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.